Joe Munoz here from OneStepPrep.com, professional type rating video training. A few days ago, we asked, what do you consider to be key factors in successful type rating completion? And so we wanted to hear your feedback, and there's three, okay? There's three that I consider to be essential in your type rating success, right? Now I'm going to write them here on the board and follow along, okay? The three elements that are crucial. Number one is effective time allocation. Okay, effective time allocation. In other words, keep something in mind. When you're studying for a type rating, you have usually about 21 days. Okay, most type rating courses run anywhere between 21 to 25 days or so, and some are longer, and some, believe it or not, even shorter than that. But the reality of it is, you've got about 3 weeks to learn an aircraft that took years to develop. And you got to be in a position to hold healthy conversations with your examiners about all the topics that they're going to bring up. So how are you going to do that? Time allocation. Number one, I'm going to talk to you here in a minute about what is effective time allocation. How can you maximize your time studying and really get the most benefit out of your time that you spend studying? Now, the second thing is going to be previous experience, right? Previous experience. Adaptation. Okay? Now I know a lot of you watching and you think, oh, what is Joe talking about? Previous experience adaptation. What I'm getting at with this is, all too often in the industry, what you hear is, if you're studying Airbus and you're coming from maybe the 737, right? You're going to hear, well, it's not a 737. Everything that you learned for 737, forget about it. Just dump it, right? And I hear it all the time. Instructors saying, everything that you know about your previous aircraft, forget about it. What? Why? Why would I forget about it? It's quality information. That's good experience that I have, that I'm going to use to relate to the next airplane, right? In more ways than one, aircraft are more similar than they are different. Use that to your advantage. Don't dump everything out of your mind. Now, the third and final one I want to talk to you about, right, is going to be, don't overstudy. Don't overstudy. And is there ever too much studying? It is a thing. It's possible, right? And what I'm getting at is, if your oral's tomorrow, the night before, okay, the last thing you want to do is be cramming, staying up late. You got your oral in the morning. You're not getting a good night's rest. Trust me when I tell you, if your oral's tomorrow and you don't have what you need to know by that point, you're behind, right? There's nothing that you're going to learn now, hours before your oral, that you shouldn't have already known. So if you're cramming because it's tomorrow, you're already behind the power curve. You know, call out sick, you know, change the date, do whatever you got to do, but you're behind the power curve at that point, right? So let's talk about this first one, which is time allocation. All right, so when we're talking about time allocation, here's what we're getting at, right? You heard me say, I mentioned that typically type ratings are about 21 days in length, and again, it could be shorter, it could be a little bit longer, but an average course is going to run you about 3 weeks long. So whatever listen, if you're at a 121 airline, if you're at a 142 training center, whatever your course curriculum is, you should have a footprint for what it looks like. And what I recommend you do is, instead of flipping through the pages of the curriculum, get one piece of paper, okay, draw a timeline, okay, which is going to be day 1 on the far left side, and your end day over here, which we'll say is 21, right? And as this timeline progresses, you have various benchmarks or gates or phase validations or all these different things that you need to comply with in order to progress to the next step, right? So for example, in the first week of a type rating course, generally it's going to be filled up with what? Ground school, okay? Maybe it's systems, maybe it's in-doc. It could even push into the second week just a little bit. And as we work into the second week, you might have another couple days of ground over here, but they also start to introduce your fixed base training, right? Fixed base training. Now here you are doing ground school, and you're studying systems, memory items, limitations, right? Lights and switches, all this good stuff for your oral. And the next thing you know is they introduce fixed base training. It means you're in a simulator. And now you have to know flows. And now you also need to know callouts and flight profiles. And when do I put the flaps out? And when do I put the gear out? And when do I say the script, right? Because this is what callouts are. You are in a movie. And you're the movie star, right? Congratulations. So you got all this fixed base stuff. And here's the challenge. Your oral generally will fall right after the initiation of fixed base training. So here you are, you've been in the fixed base sim, right? Or that flight training device, right? Or what have you. And you're torn on what to study now, right? Should I be reviewing things for the oral? Should I be reviewing things for my sim training? What am I supposed to be going through? And here's the deal. As you move towards the oral, okay, in order of priority, memory items, limitations, lights, and switches, okay? So in the first week of ground school, if I were to look at a pie chart, okay, this is going to be our time allocation in week number 1, right? So we'll say this is week number 1, and this is week number 1 pie chart. 100% of your time should be focused on memory items and limitations. Week 1, memory items and limitations. Okay, now if you happen to have a good handle on memory items and limitations and it takes you less than a week to do that, now you're going to move into what you would be studying the following week, which is lights and switches, systems, right? Fault lights, auto logic. Okay, that's what you're going into next. So now in week number 2, okay, we're going to split it up. And generally over here we get more of systems discussion, lights and switches, right? And what we find is it's about 75% systems, all right? And the other 25% up here is going to be what? Memory items and limitations, right? So the first week was memory items, limitations, okay? And the second week we're going to say is 75% more system, 25% memory item limitation. Now, as mentioned, if week 1 you think you've got those memory items and limitations nailed cold, now what you're going to want to do is start incorporating or encompassing lights and switches, auto logic, and all these other systems related questions that are going to be coming later on. All right, so now it's a little bit different, right? Because now you're in fixed base, so you need to start allocating time for the items that are going to be in these phases of your training, including the flows, right? The profiles, the callouts, all these good things. Now's the time for you to start looking at that. Well, you still need systems because you've got an oral, okay, right over here. And this is usually the part where students or pilots are going to get confused because what do I study, right? I want to go into my fixed base training. I want to impress, right, my instructor. But at the same time, I still need to have them sign me off for the oral. So my recommendation is, yes, study fixed base items, study things for your sim. Begin viewing the sim prep video portion, right, of the training. If you're one of our members here at onestepprep.com, keep in mind all of our video courses are laid out in a sequence that you should study. So when you have the timeline like this, our videos start out with oral prep, right? Memory items, limitations, and auto logics, fault lights, things like that. Why? Because that's what you need to be studying in week 1, and also as you move into week 2. And then once you get into week 2 of training, our video course is laid out so you start looking at the sim prep thing. So follow the logic if you're already a member so that you optimize your time when you're studying. Now, here we go, right? So we're doing this, we pass our oral, and remember, right, you need to get the sign off, so make sure you don't leave systems behind. Now, here we are, week 3. Right, one of the largest. You're in your final week. You see, you got the finish line in sight, and you're in full flight sim now, and you're studying things. What do you think your pie chart looks like here? Right, 100% flows, callouts, profiles, stick and rudder technique, right? Automation, utilization. These are the things that you're going to be. Forget about the systems and the memory items and limitations right now, because you're past that checkpoint. So now you go 100% sim prep. Right? So this is all going to be sim prep to prepare you ultimately for what? Check ride. Okay? Check ride right over here. So now keep something in mind, right? Usually your first week, ground, at least half of your second week, usually a little bit more ground school. And in this first week and a half, let's say, what are we studying? 100% memory items, limitations. Then we're going to get into the systems, fault lights, auto logic, okay? Probable questions from the examiner, preferred responses. That's where you're going to start to go through all these things. And if you think about a week and a half, how much time is that? You're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 days. You really don't have a lot of time. It's not a ton of time. And so it's paramount that not only do you manage your time effectively and allocate time effectively to prepare for the next benchmark coming up, not only do you need to do that, but also you need to use the tools that will most effectively utilize that time that you've set aside for study, right? And one of the ways that we do that is with video training. Just like you're watching the video right now, in those 10 days, I can tell you that 10 days worth of reading the manual, top to bottom, you won't get as much out of it as sitting and watching our oral prep portion of our online video courseware. So just something to keep in mind is that not only do you need to draw out your timeline so that you understand where you need to allocate time for the upcoming benchmark, but also find the tools and get the right tools that will allow you to optimize those 10 days as much as possible. All right, the second key factor in your type rating success, right? Remember, number 2 here, right, was adaptation of previous experience. In other words, all too often, what do we hear as pilots, right? Let's say you're on a 737, you've been flying a 737, you're transitioning into the 320, okay? And what your 320 instructors are probably going to tell you is everything that you knew about 737, forget about it, because the 320 is not a 737. It's totally different, right? Or if you're maybe you're in the corporate world, right? You're coming from a Gulfstream, you're going to a Hawker, and they say, forget about the Gulfstream, you're in a Hawker. This isn't a Gulfstream. It's always this isn't your. I got news for you. In more ways, aircraft are alike than they are different. Okay, and I want you to think about something for a moment, and I'm going to prove it to you, is that, let me show you how, for example, 73 and 320, while they do have a lot of differences, right? Certainly you can't take that away from them. They do have a lot of differences, but they have a lot of similarities. So what I'm going to do, I just want to show you some of the similarities, and again, as mentioned, they do have differences, but think of them more as, how can I adapt my previous experience to what I'm learning now? Okay, on a 737, okay, we'll put 73 over here, A320 over here, and let me go through a couple similarities, okay, with these two aircraft, right? Let's use level change, okay? If you have flown a 737, you know what level change is. If you have flown an Embraer, you know what flight level change is. If you have flown a 320, you know what an open climb or an open descent is. Guess what all those three things are? They're all the same. They're all the same, right? What happens when I push level change on a 737? Okay, here I am, level change. In the 320, the equivalent would be open climb or open descent. Okay, what does this mean? It means fixed thrust setting, fixed thrust, right? And pitch controls speed. Right? Can you read my handwriting? Right? So fixed thrust, pitch control speed. In other words, if I'm in a 7.3 and I'm level at 3,000 and ATC says climb and maintain 4, we set 4, level change, and what you're going to see, right, is your thrust is going to advance to climb power, and it will stay there, and your nose will pitch up, and the pitch will vary while your thrust stays at climb power. Thrust is fixed at climb power. And a 320, same clearance, right? Clear to climb, what we're going to see is open climb. What does that mean? Your thrust goes to climb power and your pitch will vary to maintain your speed. Same exact thing, right? It's the same. So 7.3 drivers, level change is open climb, okay? And open climb is level change, same thing. The 320 has FADEC. You know what FADEC is, right? Full authority digital engine control. We got a FADEC controller on a 320. Well, guess what? You think the 7.3 has something similar? Of course, right? It's got an EEC, electronic engine controller. And what do? Very similar things. Do some of them, for example, the 320 has a couple additional features, but overall, they control thrust. That's what these computers are designed and built to do, and they do almost the same exact thing, right? The electrical system, okay? How much output on a 320 generator system? 90 kVA. How many generators do you have? 3 of them, right? 90 kVA, we've got 3 90 kVA generators. How much on a 737 on an NG, right? You've got, same thing, 90 kVA. You got 3 of them, okay? What are they called? IDGs. What do you think they're called on a 320? IDGs, okay? Cannot parallel AC power on the electrical system. The 320 can't parallel AC power. The 737 can't parallel AC power. Okay, the A320 pneumatic system, I can't have the APU bleed on and the engine bleeds at the same time, right? 737, what do you think I'm about to tell you? You can't have them both on at the same time, right? Because of a potential back pressure to the APU on the 7.3. So it's the same. What I'm telling you is use your previous experience to help you in understanding the systems that you're learning on your next aircraft. Don't dump it all. Adapt. Adapt. 7.3 driver, if you're going to 320, you've got to understand, hey, level change is open climb. What does that mean? Fixed thrust, pitch control, speed. So open climb is level change. Guess what? Just don't call it level change anymore. Just call it open climb, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. When you're descending and you push level change, thrust comes to idle. What do you think happens? It goes to idle. What do you think happens? It goes to idle. But guess what? Don't call it level change anymore. Just call it open descent. That's it. Just change the name, but it's the same concept. This is what I'm trying to explain and transfer to you, is that find ways to adapt your previous experience and just understand that the concepts are the same, but you got to change the verbiage. We're no longer talking EEC. We're talking FADEC. We're not talking level change. We're talking open climb, right? These are the things. Just adapt. Finally, I would advise you not to overstudy. Don't overstudy, and what I mean by this is that if your oral is coming up tomorrow, okay, there's nothing that you're going to cram in your head at that point that is going to make you a pass or a fail. Okay, more than likely, if you don't have what you should know by that point, you're behind the power curve. The best thing you can do is just relax yourself. Okay, get a good night's rest, wake up in the morning, have yourself a good solid breakfast, and go in prepared, but knowing that you didn't prepare the night before. You've been preparing weeks and months ahead of time. So those are 3 key factors in your type rating success. I look forward to reading your comments below. And remember, if you have any questions at all, go to our website, onestepprep.com, hit the Contact Us tab, and call our office, our Miami office right here. And you know what? Have them forward you. Just ask to speak with Joe Munoz. They'll forward you right to my cell phone. I want to talk with you directly and answer your questions, whatever it may be. If you're at a 121 airline, a 142 training center, and you're wondering, how do I study? What do I study? I want to talk to you, and I want to make sure that you're on the right path to success, because we want to see you succeed in acquiring your type rating. Hey, thanks again. I'm Joe Munoz from One Step Prep, onestepprep.com, professional type rating video training. Thanks for tuning in.